So moving along to supercompensation or peaking. This is essentially what every coach or athlete is trying to do. If you look at this graph here on the left, we kind of have this dip and then we have this rise in the graph. Essentially what happens is you throw stress on the body and then it improves. So that happens on a daily basis, it happens on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis. So going to the graph on the right of this screen, we have kind of this red line work stress, and then we have this supercompensation or peaking that happens after recovery. Then we do that again. And this might be again on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, yearly, or multi-year basis. So essentially we're throwing stress on the body, we're doing work or things to fatigue it, we're doing recovery or resting, and then we have that thing called supercompensation. That is to increase performance. So we need kind of these rises and dips in our training, work and rest to get better and to prevent against overtraining, injury, or decrease in performance or power output. So periodization, we have kind of loading and unloading. This is a huge importance. As you can see on this graph that we show, we have volume and we have time as our y and x axis. All these little dips and valleys, we have our supercompensation, overreaching or peaking, and then we have our rest recoveries. So we're going through and we're improving over time, we're increasing stress, and we're also allowing our body to adapt. We then use a deload, rest, or kind of a reset phase, whatever you want to call it. And we start back up that trend of these little supercompensations, overreaching, or kind of peaking phases. If you kind of go through and you try to keep increasing, which is what most kind of amateur level athletes and coaches are doing, you have a basically a plateau phase, or you have a decrease in performance. So big things we want to kind of look at, or the reason for doing this, is we want to talk about unloading, recovery, and rest. So those are the key things that make you get better, keep performing, having better performances and power outputs, decrease in injuries, or keeping you healthy. So again, loading and unloading is very important. It should be done on a weekly basis. It should be done on a monthly basis, a yearly basis. So performance loading and unloading, again, kind of rehashing, we want to throw stress on the body, we want to rest the body. The body will adapt and hopefully get stronger, faster, more efficient. So we do that over time. Again, we're looking to try to unload that to rebuild and progress more. Again, some coaches, some athletes try to do a linear progression, and your body is a very complicated machine. So looking at this graph here, we kind of have this progression and this yellow line that is a plateau. So I'm just kind of comparing two athletes. One athlete might try to keep doing a little bit more. They might do a mile each week, or they might do 10 pounds on an exercise each week, progressing that over time. One athlete might take a week off. The other athlete might continue to try to do that. They may plateau and be stuck at the same intensity. So the purpose of this is just to demonstrate kind of what happens between two people, one person doing a periodized or scientific progression and another athlete or person doing kind of the traditional, let's do more, add more. So, again, yellow lines, the plateauing, no periodization. Over time, that person is going to have a decrease in performance. They're going to have overtraining symptoms, and we don't have periodization designed into that. The other person, they take weeks or days off, and they have kind of a really neat game plan, very smart, well planned and thought out game plan, and they slowly progress or increase over time. So this is just a good example of two people kind of doing different approaches to reaching a goal, and this, might be the kind of outcome of how they are training. So again, the purpose of this is to show or look at preventing plateauing and decreases in performance. So a major thing that's involved with this increase in stress is recovery. So they work hand in hand. We kind of, have lots of different ways to recover. So I'm going to look at it as kind of a zoomed out or macro or kind of a big picture, and then we're going to look at zoomed in. So on a timetable or schedule, recovery or big picture long term should be kind of, you should have a yearly rest period or cycle or phase that you're kind of taking off from your sport or your training or your goal. Again, it should be broken up into smaller kind of recovery phases or sessions in the quarterly, the weekly, and the daily views. Again, this is all to prevent from overtraining, injury, and to maximize kind of the effort that you're putting into your sport, activity, event, whatever your goal is. Then we want to zoom in to kind of the micro level or kind of real specific. We want to look at kind of the day-to-day thing. We want to look at rest intervals in between your sets. Those are going to have different impacts on how your body adapts. If you look at the graph on the lower right-hand corner, table 18.12, you have rest intervals in between your sets. So these are strength kind of related. This has to do with energy systems, ATP, creatine phosphate, glycolysis, and the Krebs cycle. So strength, you're going to have a longer rest in between to try to get your ATP stores to replenish and recovery. If you're trying to build muscle or hypertrophy, you're going to have 30 seconds to a minute and a half or 90 seconds as a recovery in between your sets. That is to kind of reach certain goals. That's again looking at certain hormonal responses, and then muscular endurance is going to be less than 30 seconds rest intervals. So we get into kind of the hydration, electrolytes, nutrition are all day-to-day importance or things to be thinking about. For hydration, we have this kind of P chart here. That is a good kind of thing to look at when you're training. If your pee or urine is really yellow or dark, that means your body is very dehydrated. So you might want to add some electrolytes and some water into your body. Another thing that is huge is sleep. Rest, obviously, that's when all our muscles and body repairs itself. So less sleep is going to decrease your performance and overall goal and efficiency. Again, the hormones that ties into our rest, our training. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Lots of stress increases cortisol. And again, depending on your goal, what you're trying to accomplish, we can use certain training intensities and time or rest intervals to release HGH, human growth hormone, testosterone, or insulin-like growth factor. So some really neat things that we can kind of throw into a scientific progression to maximize the outcome. So rest is, again, another very important topic, needs to be done. I've talked to tons of people that, do marathons and run long distances, 50 milers, ultra marathons. They tell me they don't rest at all. I don't think that's the smartest approach. Long term, it's a very unsustainable kind of approach or goal. So work stress, with rest, we're looking at volume and resting heart rate. Your body is going to basically have trouble with volume, and it's going to respond or show us that by looking at our resting heart rate. So here's kind of an example. I usually stick to a 6-day max session, week. Again, you can have multiple sessions in a day. So, obviously there's a day of rest in there. So if you look at this little chart we got here, we got an easy day, a medium intensity day, a high intensity day. Then we do a recover or an unload. We go back to an easy day, and then we ramp back up. And then on our 7th day, we take off and rest. Okay, that's again to allow accommodation, adaptation, and get your body kind of getting the best that it can be or get to. Okay, so we have different types of rest. We have passive rest. Passive rest is doing nothing. It's laying on the couch or sleeping, not moving at all. Active rest is doing light type of movements to increase blood flow, to flush out waste products, and to help with lymphatic drainage. So we have stretching, light cardio, foam rolling, massages, massage stick, contrast baths, and icing. So lots of different ways that you can kind of clean out your blood system to help with recovery and repairing, and that way you can go as hard as you can on your next training session.